Good morning, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. And Hank, happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
And to you. I'm
Thank
thankful
you.
for the fact that the coach who gets all the raves for the Rams, he didn't give the ball to Gurley for some reason. When it was time to run out the clock, he was still throwing the ball at the end, which was kind of mystifying to me. And he got off lucky.
He did. I don't think any of us could understand that. I mean, why he ever gave the ball back to Kansas City, I'll never know. I mean, no matter who
he never gave the ball to Gurley in the fourth quarter.
Well,
that's his bread and butter.
A report came out this morning that Gurley had turned his ankle and they weren't using him much in the game because of that. I just heard that on the news this morning.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, they have other running backs. They don't have to give it just to him. But
they don't have another one like him.
No, but well, there aren't too many like him.
You know something? He has some good defensive players who really showed up in key situations and created turnovers in the game. And the turnovers were the difference.
Absolutely. They do have that Darnold is just absolutely incredible. He plays havoc on the offense for the other team. He just is an amazing player. They have a lot of good players on the team. It's really going to be a hell of a run to the Super Bowl for these teams. Right now, of course, everybody is saying that the Saints are number one, and then the Rams and the Chiefs are right behind them. It's going to, barring injury,
I think the Kansas City defense, although they're getting some people healthy, particularly at safety, watch Pittsburgh. They're not out of it. They came back. It was interesting on Monday. I talked about the fact that a lot of high-profile quarterbacks had bad games on Monday, and despite the fact that he threw 5 or 6 touchdown passes, you could say the same about Kansas City. He turned the ball over how many times? 5?
Quite a few.
5 times.
Wow.
He had 5 turnovers in the game. And you could say that as much as he did for him offensively, he killed him defensively.
Yeah, you're right. Jared Goff, when he came out of college, initially a lot of people were saying he was going to be a bust. But boy, I'll tell you what, he's pretty damn good.
You know what? He shows you what good coaching will do. He has a ton of wide receivers. Somebody was pointing out today about that draft that they have in 2016, and that included a couple of wide receivers that came from a bunch of small schools. And I haven't seen a draft like that that brought in so many guys from small colleges since Beathard was around.
Yeah, and they lost Cooper Kupp for the season, and he was a hell of a player as well. But they filled in pretty nicely with that. I mean, it's going to be, this run to the Super Bowl is going to be very interesting these next 8 weeks. And, of course, college is getting down to it.
Remember we had the conversation about Duke, and you told me that nobody's going to beat Duke. And last night they got a good run for their money with Auburn. My friend Bruce Pearl has done a great job with Auburn, and his best player comes back in week 9. But they came back against Duke. Duke couldn't get away from them. And I thought it was interesting in the second half of that game that the Duke players got frustrated and they turned the ball over several times late in the game, and they won the game by 6 points. And they were never in trouble as far as losing the game was concerned. But they couldn't break away from a 10-point lead. And, in fact, they had a double-digit lead in the first half. And then Auburn just couldn't hit an outside shot. And then in the second, towards the end of the half, they started hitting the outside shots. And then the Duke team got a little bit flustered. And Seth Greenberg in the post-game show pointed this out, and I noticed it during the game, that their guard play has to be a little more cautious with the ball. Now, they're going to play Gonzaga, in the finals to that Maui Classic, and Gonzaga, Arizona was leading Gonzaga by 13 points, and Gonzaga turned the game around and won by 13 points, or I guess more than that, 17 points. 30-point difference in the second half, and they've got two great players, and they have speed, and they can run the floor, and they can. The difference in that game was that Arizona's best player fouled out, and they had no answers on the boards. They couldn't rebound at all, and Gonzaga killed them on the boards. Gonzaga's a nice team, and I'm anxious to see what Duke and Gonzaga do in the finals. And I think it could be a good game. Gonzaga could get in trouble. They're well coached, and Duke is going to have to play better than they did last night.
Well, the one thing about Duke that I think a lot of people were concerned about, that nobody questions their talent, but they are young. And, go down the season, a couple, 15, 20 games, they're going to be a lot different and more mature than they are today. But that was a good lesson for them last night. They could not get away from Auburn. Pearl is doing a good job there. And that was a wake-up call for them to only win by 6.
I think Auburn's going to win the SEC. They're loaded, and they've got a lot of guys who can shoot. And like I said, their best player will be eligible in week 9, and they're going to get better too.
Yes, they will. It's going well, hopefully it's not going to be a Duke march to the title. Hopefully it's going to be a lot of competitive battles and it'll get down to something really great in March. It's going to be good.
I don't know what the ACC has that can compete with Duke, to be honest with you. Although North Carolina State is pretty good, I just don't know who else has anything that's got the depth of talent that Duke does. North Carolina is always strong, but I don't think they have the depth of talent that Duke has. It's when Duke gets out of conference that I think they'll find some teams that will challenge them.
I agree with that. We got some big football games coming up this weekend. Some traditional matchups. We got the NFL starting tomorrow. We got 3 NFL games. Chicago is. You mentioned it the other day. They played the late game the other night. Now they're playing the early game on Thursday. It's sort of unfair scheduling there. Washington's going to come in with a.
You mean you want to change the tradition of Thanksgiving and not schedule games on Thursday anymore? Even if they got away from Thursday scheduling, there would always be Thanksgiving. That's not unfair scheduling. That's tradition.
I wasn't referring to that. I was referring to the time that they're playing. The Chicago
same time every year.
But Chicago played the late hour the other night, and now on Monday, and now they're playing it's a short time frame for them. That's my point. But
yeah,
I'm looking forward to the Thursday games as well. No, they're not going to get away from that. And of course, we got to. I don't know if anybody's interested, but I know there's people interested. Tiger Woods against Phil Mickelson, the matchup on Friday, pay-per-view matchup for $9 or $10 million. That's a big event coming up this weekend. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be great.
I'll tell you what. The one thing negative about Chicago is Trubisky may not be able to play. They say he thinks they think he's going to be ready, but they may not want him to play. They may want to rest him because they are in first place in that division, and they may think that they can beat Detroit without him because of their defense. But he's got a little bit of an elbow problem, and they may not want him to go so quick coming back, whether he played on Sunday afternoon or Monday afternoon or Monday night, whatever. It's a quick turnaround to Thursday when you've got a quarterback with a slight injury. And so, if he doesn't play, they'll miss his mobility above everything else. And but Detroit, they don't have their running back available. He's hurt, and that's going to destroy their offense because he was really playing well for them.
Yes,
and Detroit's defense is not going to be able to hold off Chicago's running game. So, that's what makes that interesting. And Dallas and Washington, that's a good traditional game. Remember Clint Longley?
Oh, God. Yeah.
When Washington played Dallas on a Thanksgiving game, I was working with CBS that year, and I watched the game with George Allen, who was also working for CBS. George Allen saw the Dallas team, or the Washington team, come out of the field that day, and he started cursing. And I said, "What's the matter, Coach?" He said, "They're not ready to play. I can tell by the way they came out on the field." And he was right.
No kidding. You can see that from the way they came out on the field. That's amazing.
He was an amazing guy. But anyway, and Longley, of course, engineered the upset for Dallas because nobody thought they could win, without, I guess it was a quarterback at that time. But he was hurt, or whoever it was. It might have been the other quarterback for Dallas, who everybody loves, who wound up working for ABC. But anyway, they got beat. It's a big rivalry, and of course Washington has a backup quarterback going to play for him, so that's going to be another issue in this game. And it's a big game for Dallas because Dallas is still trailing Washington in the standings, so they need this game. And, you could say that the whole organization is on the line for Dallas. It's a big game for the organization. The other game is going to be interesting because the spread is huge, 11 points. And Atlanta goes in there, and Atlanta always plays well somehow against New Orleans. And you remember it was a missed field goal that won the game for New Orleans the last time they played. And it was a 3-point difference. And Atlanta could have won that game had they not missed the field goal. And of course, this game is in New Orleans, and New Orleans looks so good right now. But you never know with Ryan; he could come up with a big game. I think the over might be the play in that game. I'm not willing to give 11 points.
It's actually 13 this morning. The spread.
A lot of points.
Yeah, it is a lot of points. And it is a rivalry. These are all great rivalries, matchups. The Chicago team, the Bears, they have a pretty good backup in Chase Daniel. He can play. He's pretty damn good. He's really never really had much of a shot as a starter, but when he comes in as a reliever, he's backup quarterback. He's one of the better ones. So that's the big fall off. It's not that big a fall off with a guy like him. It's going to be a great Thanksgiving with a couple college games. You got the Colorado State and the Air Force, and you got Mississippi State against Mississippi. The two good college games, rivalries.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff this weekend. You got Washington State.
Well, the best game is going to be West Virginia, Oklahoma.
That's on.
That's Friday.
That's Friday. Yeah, that's going to be the total in that game, Hank, is 83 or 84. So that'll be back and forth, just like the Monday Night Football game, back and forth. Probably reach 100 points. So.
Barring a big game for both schools. So
yeah,
and of course Ohio State, Michigan is a huge game in the Midwest. But Ohio State right now is not playing very well, and Michigan's got a great club. So, but it's Michigan, Ohio State. You never know what's going to happen when those two teams play. That's another one of those rivalry games. So there's some big rivalry games in college, and you've got some other NFL matchups over the weekend that are going to be strong, and we'll see. We'll see if the Chargers can bounce back this week. I'm going to tell you two interesting games. The Giants You know, the Giants have 3 wins now, and they're not out of it. And all of a sudden, they've got a game this week against a team that doesn't pressure the quarterback well. And if Eli has time, he'll beat the other team. Not only that, but their defense is pretty good. If the Giants win again this week, and they're playing Philadelphia, who's not playing well right now, they're right, believe it or not, in that division race again and could get in. You know, they could win it. And the Giants were a team at the beginning of the season who we thought was going to be very good. Maybe they're just now coming around. You know, they've won a couple of games in a row. And like I said, Eli can still swing it, like when he gets time particularly. And they've got the running back, and, you know, they've got receivers. They're going to be tough for Philadelphia, who has big problems in their secondary, and their quarterback is not playing well right now. And they've got a lot of issues in their offensive line. They're in trouble. The other game is Baltimore. Baltimore is also not out of it. In fact, they lead in the wild card chase in the AFC, believe it or not. And their rookie quarterback ran for over 100 yards and threw for over 100 yards last week. And they've got Oakland coming in. And that's a big number. I think it's 9.5. And, you know, they've got a good defense, and Oakland is terrible. And if they win again this week, they've got a quarterback decision to make. May have to make it this week because you don't know if Flacco's ready or not. I don't think they're anxious to bring Flacco back, to be honest. They really like, you know, what the rookie quarterback did. And I think they're anxious to see him for another week. And against Oakland, it could be like a scrimmage for him. And if Baltimore wins again this week, they're still leading in the wild card chase, believe it or not.
Unbelievable. You got a matchup down the road in Carolina, Seattle and Carolina. You got two teams that are really fighting for their life. Carolina has stubbed their toe the last couple of weeks. They're 6-4 on the season. Seattle's 5-5. Looks like Carolina's a 3 or 3.5 point favorite in that game. And going back to the Baltimore game, the line is up to 10.5, 11 right now. Baltimore's favorite over Oakland.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you one thing about Carolina. They've never lost 3 games in a row since that coach has been there recently. And Cam is coming off another rough outing, and he's going up against a Seattle team that's pretty banged up. And so that'll be an interesting game to watch, too. But, you know, one thing about Seattle, they can run the ball, but can they run it against that defense? It's one thing about Carolina. They've got really good linebackers, and their defense is very strong against the run. So that's going to be an interesting game.
You know, Cam Newton is one of the most imposing athletes in the game. Incredible talent. But the one thing...
And also very unpredictable.
Yeah, the one thing about him, you're right, the one thing is he's never really been an accurate passer. He's always throws a lot of high passes, which he did the other day when they went for the 2 points to win it. He's always had that problem. He's never corrected his mechanics to that degree.
You just hit it, and that is his mechanics are awful. He throws off his back foot, and he doesn't take it, and his progressions are not so good, and he drives coaches crazy. He ran Mike Shula right out of there, and you know, after they won with Mike, you know, all of a sudden Mike became no good because he couldn't control Cam, and now Norv is finding the same. Norv Turner is finding the same difficulties with him. So, you know, and when he has an opportunity to run now, he's reluctant to take it. You don't know what you're going to get with him. It's like another box of chocolates. I don't mean that, by the way, from the chocolate implication. I'm talking about the box of candies that Forrest Gump used to open up.
Yeah, never know what you're going to get, right?
Yep.
The Green Bay Packers, the Sunday night game at Minnesota. Packers are Minnesota's 3.5 point favorite. Minnesota got clubbed the other day by Chicago. Green Bay's been faltering. What do you think? I mean, got two teams that are not really living up to the expectations that people thought at the beginning of the year.
Green Bay play on the road, that's part of it. Their defense is not so good, that's another part of it. Minnesota's quarterback, who had a terrible game last week against Chicago, where their defense played so well in the second half, they put him back in position to win the game, and the quarterback stunk. Against the Green Bay defense, he should have a better game. They've got the wide receivers, and they've got their the running back healthy. And Green Bay, like I said, they're depending so totally on one man offensively, although they do have a decent running back. But Minnesota's going to shut that offense down, I believe. Their defense is really playing well right now. They should have won that game last week against Chicago because they were in a position to, and their defense gave them the ball twice in the second half, 3 times in the second half, and the quarterback couldn't do anything with it. And I think against a team without a pass rush, or very spotty pass rush wise, and no real good defense, and real struggle on the road, they just this points for a big win for Minnesota, which they need.
Hey, looking at another game, Miami at Indianapolis. Now, this is interesting to me. And I know the quarterback change is probably the biggest reason. Miami opened as a 10-point dog. The line has come down now to 7.5. Indianapolis.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I knew that. I mean, they announced Tannehill's going to play, so the line goes down 2.5 points. I don't get that excited about Tannehill coming in there and playing. I think you agree with me on that.
Their defense ranks 29th or worse in every category, going against one of the hottest offenses in the league right now, playing at home.
Yeah, and Andrew Luck, Andrew Luck is playing as well as anybody.
That's what I just said.
Yep.
In a different way. I mean, the hottest quarterback going right now, and their offensive line is playing very well, and Miami ranks 29th or worse in every defensive category.
Yeah, that was a big adjustment. I don't agree with it, and I think you agree with me on that. It's the 10 was difficult to look at and lay that number, but 7.5 is getting a lot more appealing for sure.
I was willing to lay 9.5.
Well,
Miami, as you know, have little regard for Miami.
I know you do. Very little. Anything else you want to add before we close our Thanksgiving show?
No, just getting ready for turkey and baked ham. Love that combination.
All right. Well, you enjoy. Healthy and happy day. For everybody out there, listen, we all have a lot to be thankful for. I know some people have more problems than others. And the fires in California, it's been horrible on a lot of people, but there's, we do have a lot to be thankful for, so focus on that. And thank you, Hank. I appreciate it, and we'll talk again on Monday. We'll be off the rest of the week.
All right, Jim.
Thank you,
hey,
buddy.
Jim?
Yes.
Yeah, you erased that box